What do a clown, a rat, and a convicted criminal have in common? They all sold fast food to millions. Forget the jingles and costumes. Here's the real story of fast food's wildest mascots. Looking to stand out from the fast food crowd, in 2004, Quiznos unleashed the Spongmonkeys on an unsuspecting world. Best described as deformed hamsters with decaying teeth, these unlikely mascots for a subjoint certainly created a lot of noise.
So $1 off when you bring in a coupon!
Was any of that noise good? Well, franchise owners didn't like them, and customers either loved or hated them, depending on their personality. Within 6 months, the Spongmonkeys were finished, or were they? While Quiznos went through some restructuring issues in the intervening years and closed down the majority of its restaurants, they're still around, and in 2023, Quiznos announced its return in a familiar way.
Road trips are part of the American...
We are back!
Jack in the Box doesn't mind clowning around. The chain that started in San Diego in 1951 originally incorporated a circus jester atop their stores and novel drive-through speakers boxes. Looking to remake their image, the clown bit the dust in an explosive 1980 commercial. He eventually returned as head of Jack in the Box. Now, he was a dude in a suit with a round white head who was a lot more aggressive and often brazenly called out competitors directly.
Do something about it.
Jack's still going strong to this day in one of the longest-running campaigns in the fast food world. Gidget the Chihuahua's first commercial job was for Hardee's, and had it not been for a last-minute role reversal between her and a dog named Dinky, she would never have become the Taco Bell Chihuahua. The first ad starring Gidget and the soon-to-be-forgotten Dinky aired in 1997 and gave television watchers a catchphrase that would worm its way into their brains for life.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
The unforgettable Pooch was voiced by Carlos Alizraki, who told SFGate that the accent is a combo of Ren and Stimpy and actor Peter Lorre. Sadly, Gidget died in 2009, but in the 3 years her bug eyes graced television screens, she became a lasting pop culture icon. One of Atari's co-founders, Nolan Bushnell, may have made a name for himself in video games in the 1970s, but according to the other founder, his heart was always set on opening a pizza parlor with talking beer barrels. When Bushnell opened his first restaurant, Coyote Pizza, he ordered a mascot to match the name, but ended up with a rat costume instead. Bushnell dubbed him Rick Rat, then renamed him Big Cheese, then Chuck E. Cheese, with the E standing for entertainment. Chuck E. Cheese became the face of Pizza Time Theater, which opened in 1977 in San Jose, California. Similar pizza-tainment places soon sprouted up, and after financial troubles, Pizza Time Theater merged with Showbiz Pizza Time in 1985. Ultimately, the merged brands made Chuck E. Cheese the head cheese. In 2012, the mouse got a rock and roll cartoony makeover, and 2 years later, a sad origin story as an orphan who never knew his birthday but always enjoyed celebrating others. Unfortunately, his popularity has continued to wane over the years.
Animatronics are on their way out. In their place, interactive dance floors, and giant video walls.
Hoping to convey the image of fresh pizza delivered fast, Domino's Pizza worked with ad agencies to create their bad guy mascot, Mr. Noid, named after a shortened version of what Domino's employees called themselves, Dominoids. How would a red spandex-wearing, stretchy villain hellbent on sabotaging pies help sell pizza? You wouldn't have thought it possible, but it worked. Brand awareness instantly swelled, and customers bought up t-shirts, bendable figures, a Yo Noid video game by Nintendo, and almost got to see a Saturday morning cartoon. But in an unexpected twist, in 1989, a man with the last name Noid held 2 Domino's employees hostage for hours. It's hard to bounce back after something like that, and the Noid was nixed by the brand. That said, the Noid did return in 2011 for a viral promotional game, and again a decade later to try and stop Domino's self-driving delivery robots. Starbucks' nautical name inspired logo designer Terry Heckler to draw up a mermaid hearkening to the past. Heckler told the Seattle Times that she was a metaphor for the allure of caffeine, the sirens who drew sailors into the rocks.
Siren!
Debuting in 1971, Starbucks Siren was first a bare-chested, double-tail-spreaded temptress, which ultimately proved to be a little too risque. Her hair was elongated to cover her breasts in 1982, and a decade later, the tail duo was made up to be a bit more modest-looking.
We still need a logo, and photo shoots ain't cheap.
We'll use this in her memory.
We'll
crop it!
A physical mascot has never been known to make an appearance, but that hasn't stopped fans from dressing up as the siren for Halloween. Where do you go to satisfy that craving for beaver nuggets? Buc-ee's, of course. Buc-ee's is no mere gas station. It's a Texas-sized pit stop with pristine bathrooms, delectable ready-to-go eats, and endless items adorned with a smiling buck-toothed beaver with a red baseball cap. The logo and mascot take after its owner, Arch Applin III, who earned the same rodent nickname from his mother. The first Buc-ee's opened in 1982, and Applin told Texas Monthly that the logo was commissioned, but not exactly ready at that time. When it finally was, it was smacked onto everything, from beaver nuggets to plush toys. Fast forward to the present, and it's as recognizable a Texas icon as they come. Polls show that at least 80% of Texans are aware of the logo, and the more it expands, the more famous it gets. So it's no surprise that Buc-ee's has been very protective of its beaver trademarks, litigating against many similar animal logos.
They say if something gets famous enough, there's bound to be copycats, Siobhan. Well, what
There
about
is.
copy beavers?
You don't mess with the beaver.
You know I'm getting to this?
For the Georgia-based chain that perfected the chicken sandwich, it's all about their poor-spelling cows who tell humans to eat more chicken. The advertising campaign was drummed up in 1995 by the Richards Group, who were told by Chick-fil-A to create a billboard that people will laugh about in church on Sunday. David Ring was the original art director and told Ad Chat that the painting cows were inspired by Gary Larson's Far Side cartoons. While they parted ways with the Richards Group 22 years later, the cow's legacy still moves forward today. In his biography, Eat More Chicken, Inspire More People, founder S. Truett Cathy said, "The lesson from the cows is the lesson of my life. Take advantage of unexpected opportunities." Out of a broom closet operation in his father's Indiana bar, Papa John Schnatter slowly worked his way up into one of America's top 5 grossing pizza places. Schnatter was not only the name behind Papa John's, but the face as well, appearing on pizza boxes and an endless stream of TV ads.
Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's.
That all came to a screeching halt in 2018 after reports that Schnatter uttered a racial slur and was forced out as chairman of the chain he founded. In 2021, the company dropped the apostrophe in its name, which prompted Schnatter to say in a statement, "They can't have Papa John's without Papa John." Papa John's has a less controversial figurehead picking up the pieces these days, Mr. Slice. The 6-foot costume is patterned with mushrooms, green peppers, black olives, pepperoni, and eyes. James McLemore and David Edgerton first franchised Burger King in Miami in 1954, creating the Flame Broiler, later the Whopper, and eventually dropping the Insta from the name. Then in 1955, the duo crowned the brand's noble mascot, the King, who was pictured on a bun with a milkshake in hand. To keep up with the McDonald Land crew, in 1977, the company tapped Fred Barton to be the marvelous magical Burger King, who reigned over the fun along with the Duke of Doubt, Sir Shake-a-Lot, Wizard of Fries, and Burger Thing. In 2004, the brand's ad agency dove headfirst into the uncanny valley and created a creepy plastic king who was given the keys to the kingdom. He was shelved in 2011, but still pops up now and then to rear his ugly head. Bojangles has always rested on the quality of its chicken and biscuits more than the quality of its advertising.
It's so clucking good.
But there have been mascots for the fast food joint, even if they aren't particularly creative. They sell chicken, so no surprise they have a chicken mascot. In fact, someone dressing up in a chicken costume has long been a part of their brand, even if the early incarnations were the standard-looking yellow ones. Over time, its chicken earned a name. Big Bo changed his feathers from yellow to white and got a red vest and a solid six-pack. They also had a string of commercials at the turn of the century featuring a chicken puppet called Little Guy.
Cock-a-doodle-doo! That means it's morning.
Recently, an unofficial mascot joined the Bojangles family, Cuppy, which is literally just a Bojangles cup with googly eyes. In 1963, a commercial starring Willard Scott introduced the world's newest, silliest, hamburger-eatingest clown, Ronald McDonald. While the character was a bit rough around the edges to start, he went on to become such a quintessential character that Ad Age said, "He doesn't sell for McDonald's, he is McDonald's." At the beginning of the 1970s, McDonald's wanted to give Ronald some friends, and with the indirect help of HR Puffin Stuff creators Sid and Marty Krofft, the McDonald Land characters were brought to Technicolor life. Captain Crook, the Professor, Grimace, the Hamburglar, and more were just the start of something truly beautiful in the marketing world. As the years passed, most of these beloved characters were retired or oddly reinvented. Even the great Ronald McDonald was forced out of the big top after all those clown sightings in 2016. Even before Bob's Pantry became Bob's Big Boy, the Big Boy mascot existed, created by one of founder Bob Wyand's former coworkers. Apparently, the design was based on a 6-year-old boy named Richard Woodruff, who was a regular customer that also ran errands for Wyand. Woodruff's brother Glenn told the AP he was a little short, chubby guy, and that's where Bob got the idea. They say he came in with checkered pants on. In the 1950s, Big Boy's image was updated to its classic look by Manfred Bernhard. Bernhard spearheaded a comic book, The Adventures of Big Boy, which Stan Lee wrote the original original issue for. It also featured Big Boy's girlfriend, Dolly, and dog Nugget. In 2020, it was announced that Dolly replaced her boyfriend as the mascot, which caused so much of a stir that the company had to assure fans Big Boy wasn't going anywhere. According to Whataburger, their superhero mascot Whataguy first appeared on kids' meal bags and a game site in the summer of 1999. His mission is to protect freshness, flavor, and the Whataburger way. Beyond entertaining children in Whataburger restaurants, Whataguy works as the ambassador for Whataburger Feeding Student Success, the brand's signature community program. He is also a true gentleman, accepting a Texas teenager's offer to attend homecoming.
I didn't have a date to the homecoming, so I thought, why not take my cow? Then I thought,
good first thought.
Why not take Whataburger?
As a former Kentucky Fried Chicken man who worked directly with Colonel Sanders, Dave Thomas knew that image was everything. So when he struck out on his own in 1969 to serve old-fashioned hamburgers in Columbus, Ohio, he borrowed his daughter's nickname, Wendy, and her likeness. In the early days, his daughter even dressed the part of Wendy, wearing pigtails and a blue and white dress, but the mascot has since lived primarily as a drawing. Before he died, Thomas expressed guilt to his daughter for the pressure he placed on her by naming the restaurant after her, although she said she's proud to be such an iconic part of the burger dynasty. Zaxby's is a chicken chain with 3 clucky mascots, 2 with names that tip their plumes to their co-founder, Zach McElroy. The main chicken, seen on their logo and in costume form, is known as Big Zach. The mascot responsible for most of the gospel spreading of Zaxby's is known as Little Zach, or LZ for short. Little Zach is an athletic chicken with a yellow tank top and blue shorts who shows up to local events. The face of Zaxby's Kids Club, LZ is sometimes joined by pal Little Zuzy. Buffalo Wild Wings didn't originate from upstate New York, but it honors its chickeny birthplace by employing the use of a buffalo for its logo, along with a mascot by the name of Blazin Bill. In some places, he's referred to as Blaze, and in Delaware, he goes by Jester. As a big fan of sports, he wears a yellow jersey with his name and number 82 on its back, a nod to the restaurant's founding in 1982. Buffalo Wild Wings recently went CGI in a series of commercials that feature a big winged bull, but Blazin Bill is still hanging around local events. Pat Gianmarco brought a taste of Italy to Oregon, Ohio, when he opened Marco's Pizza in 1978. The mustached founder was such a fixture in his own restaurant that his likeness was caricatured into a dough-tossing logo, Chef Marco, with a trademark filing that dates back to 1983. More than a decade later, Chef Marco's face was enlarged and manifested in costume form, wearing a hat with his name on it and a 3-button white chef's coat. Bushy mustache aside, Chef Marco's most noticeable feature is his giant smile, which happily greets customers at the restaurant. When El Pollo Loco decided to drum up more interest in their chicken, they developed a mascot. It was, you guessed it, a chicken. Named Chicken, as far as we can tell. The chicken hasn't always been depicted the same way, but the most common design is a bright yellow suit with a red apron. You might have seen it whirling signs outside an El Pollo Loco location as you drive past on your way to KFC. In 2019, even Brad Pitt admitted that when he was a struggling actor, he landed a starring role inside the chicken suit for a while. Pitt actually shared the job and costume with a friend, who told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch all about how disgusting it was to swap places in the sweaty, smelly costume after a shift. Bon appetit!
Well, I'm kind of stuck here like stink on stink.
Not long after George W. Church Sr. opened Church's in 1952, the mascot Churchie was hand-sketched at his family's kitchen table. The happy, rotund chef carrying a fork could be found on boxes of fried chicken, their groovy uniforms, and even their official spy camera. By 1988, Churchie had transformed from a human mascot into a chicken, but Church's never forgot their man, even pondering in 2013 if he should make a return. 7 years later, the true Churchie returned to the brand's to-go boxes, bringing his winning smile to those dining at home. Colonel Sanders has graced boxes of KFC chicken for as long as anyone can remember, but a lot of people don't realize that he was actually a real guy. Harland Sanders served in the military, but only became Colonel Sanders when he was given the honorary Kentucky Colonel status and title in 1936. He later began dressing the part when he imparted his 11 herbs and spices secret to Pete Harmon in 1952, who then launched a finger-licking good empire in Sanders' image, Kentucky Fried Chicken. While Colonel Sanders got a piece of the action, he served the brand more as a logo, living mascot, and ambassador. Decked out in his signature getup of a white suit, black western bow tie, and black shoes, the white-haired and goateed spokesman was an ever-ready presence in advertising.
Howdy, folks. It's me, Colonel Sanders.
Hey, that's not the real Colonel Sanders. I'm the real Colonel Sanders.
When Sanders died in 1980, KFC waited 14 years before letting someone else assume the Colonel role. Dairy Queen's reign began in 1940, and they started rolling out mascots a decade later. Curly the Clown was given a brief chance at the gig. An Eskimo Girl was kept above some of their locations, and the Dilly Bar was once one happy cowboy. By the 1960s, when the company remodeled the stores with their famed red roofs, a Dutch maid named Little Miss Dairy Queen lived atop them. Hank Ketchum's Dennis the Menace comic strip often shared same-page real estate with Dairy Queen in newspapers, and in March 1972, the former became the latter's spokestune until 2002. Starting in the late 1980s, DQ also tapped Curly Top as an in-person mascot that looks like the restaurant's signature ice cream cone. In 1916, Nathan Handwerker started selling his soon-to-be famous hot dogs. When Nathan's expanded in the 1950s, a mascot joined in on the fun, who went by the interchangeable names of Frankie or Frankster. One of the first official mentions of the mascot was in 1973, when the Daily News noted that the chef hat, bow tie, and apron-sporting Frankie Man was a 7-foot hot dog-shaped robot with a living person inside. In 1992, Frankster made a major comeback, featuring in signage and kids' meals. The mascot is also a staple at the annual Nathan's Famous hot dog eating contest. Julie Rosenberg has embodied Frankster's 40 pounds of foam for over 15 years, and while eating hot dogs is a good time, being a hot dog isn't as glamorous. She told the Daily Beast the costume smells like a combination of a locker room mixed with old sausage. Yum! Michael Vale made quite a name for himself as a TV pitchman and spent a big chunk of that career playing Fred the Baker for Dunkin' Donuts. The ads starring Vale as a sleepy, early-to-rise baker began airing in 1982, and it wasn't long before Fred became famous in his own right.
Time to make the donuts.
The commercials were everywhere at the time, to the point that even Saturday Night Live dedicated a few segments to parodying the character. When Dunkin' shifted its focus more to coffee and drinks, Fred was taken off the air in 1997, but was given a hero's parade and kept on as a brand ambassador until he passed away in 2005. Aiming to make Father's Day 1977 an especially fun time, Tom Carvel, the founder of Carvel Ice Cream and Cake Shops, created Fudgy the Whale, a whale-shaped chocolate cake.
Why is Fudgy always invited to the party? Because he's cool, so give Dad what he really wants for Father's Day. Fudgy the Whale.
The cake took off, and for more than 40 years, Fudgy the Whale has served as a beer, a plush toy, an intern, a Santa cake, and occasionally a physical spokes whale. Carl's Jr. started life as a smaller but speedier version of the founder's flagship restaurant, Carl's Drive-In Barbecue, in 1956. Around the same time, the bright yellow, 5-pointed Happy Star appeared on the scene. The mascot has graced ads for Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, which became pretty much the same thing in 1997, spreading the joy of burgers and making sure customers' priorities are properly aligned.
Owning property is overrated! Owning Charbroiled Burgers is 5 out of 5 stars!
If you haven't kept up with Hardee's and Carl's Jr. media over the years, you might be surprised to learn that Happy Star has something of a life of his own. He has a LinkedIn page and has his own YouTube channel offering short nuggets of wisdom called Happyisms. When an Indiana University student named Jared Fogle lost 245 pounds in his own self-created Subway diet, it caught the attention of the local media, and eventually Subway itself, who tapped Jared to tell his story in a series of ads. Over the next 15 years and more than 300 commercials, Jared worked as the face of Subway, making endless public and corporate appearances, and popping up in multiple movies and shows. Well, we all know how this story ends. In 2015, Jared was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Subway, not surprisingly, dropped him.
Subway doesn't do conflict.
Before it went international, Jollibee was a Philippines-based fast food restaurant that emphasized joy and fun. The founder worked with a marketing consultant to overhaul the restaurant's image, which included coming up with a brand new mascot. Consultant Manuel Lumba came up with the Bee, which is sort of a general mashup of vague ideas that conjure the idea of fun food. Lumba told Entrepreneur, "I added a chef's hat to suggest quality food, a red dinner jacket with a vest to boot, and white gloves that remind me of Disney characters." More characters joined, many representing new products like Chicky, Lady Moo, Miko, Champ, and more. This eclectic bundle even had a popular television series called Jollytown that ran for 82 episodes. Jollibee has expanded globally, and the buzz is always palpable when the Bee is around. Crystal Burger doesn't have a mascot these days, but once upon a time, a trio of costumed animals graced the fast food chain. A brown monkey, a yellow hippo, and a red walrus made up the Crystal Critters, who were introduced as colorful characters that are going to make Crystal restaurants more fun than ever. By 1985, the Critters were sharing the stage with spokespeople Cowboy Sid and Sheila the Wonder Horse, before being unceremoniously phased out. Mike Ilitch originally wanted to name his Michigan fast food joint Pizza Treat, but his wife felt something was missing. According to D-Business, he turned her nickname for him, Little Caesar, into the title instead. For the small sum of $200, artist Don Silverstein drew up a toga-clad pizza-eating character. He came complete with a deceptively simple catchphrase that would ring in the heads of generations.
Pizza, pizza.
3 years later, their logo was seen by legions of eaters when he became a towering plaster statue on top of the restaurants. Detroit hockey fans in particular get a huge helping of Little Caesar, since his image was also painted on the roof of the aptly named Little Caesars Arena, home of the Red Wings professional hockey team. Named after the infamous sea cook from Robert Louis Stevenson's classic 1883 novel Treasure Island, Long John Silver's founders doubled down on the pirate's name recognition when they cobbled together a mascot. The peg-legged pirate with an eye patch and parrot has long been a part of the company's iconography.
My husband and I love coming to Long John Silver's.
Amy Buc-ee.
Sometimes he calls me that.
In 1995, the brand turned to Mr. Norman Big Fish to be their chairman and spokesfish, but he didn't last long. And in the early 2000s, the seafood chain partnered with Muppets character Pepe the Prawn for a series of entertaining commercials.
Pepe, who you calling? Don't tell me my business, woman.
But through it all, the pirate has consistently been around. The original Einstein Bros Bagels mascots were named Bernie and Melvin and were trademarked in 1989 by Bagel and Bagel Bakery and Noshery, one of the predecessors to the modern chain. They were inspired by the family who founded the original restaurants. The co-founder Richard Lozoff's uncles lent their names to their character, while Richard and his brother-in-law lent their likenesses. As the bagel eatery grew, changed hands, and merged with other restaurants, Bernie and Melvin were sidelined for a while. But when the bagel business eventually donned its current name, Einstein Bros Bagels, it resurrected the original logo characters, although Bernie was renamed Elmo. In the late 1970s, Rax was a popular chain, but as stores started closing in the 1990s, they threw a mascot Hail Mary and enlisted Mr. Delicious, aka Mr. D. He became the adult in the room, telling it like it is about the adult fast food place. Rax believed in Mr. D so much that they made a 13-minute promotional video extolling the virtues of the spokesman. Unfortunately for all parties involved, it just wasn't meant to be. Months after introducing Mr. D in 1992, Rax declared bankruptcy. After first trying a more mature approach to selling roast beef with Barry White's smooth voice, things got animated in 2003 when Arby's tried on its mascot Oven Mitt for size. The spokesthing was voiced by Tom Arnold.
I'm king of the world!
Oven Mitt only lasted 2 years, making this mascot merely a brief footnote in the chain's advertising history. In America, Krispy Kreme donuts are so well known that they don't even require the use of a mascot. However, for their holy brethren from across the pond in the UK and Ireland, Mr. OG is more than happy to show his face in any crowd. The mascot's initialism name references the company's pride and everyone else's enjoyment, the original glazed donut. Mr. OG is kind of weird. His face is just a big donut with squishy cheeks, and he wears a branded hat and green shorts. Is he necessary? Not at all. But you can still buy Mr. OG plush toys if you really want to. Edward V. Gold started a hamburger restaurant in 1934 named after the Popeye comic character Wimpy, and that restaurant quickly sizzled into a fast food chain that became popular in the UK and South Africa. A foam mascot debuted for the company in Brighton, England in 1978. His name was Mr. Wimpy, and his getup included a beefeater costume, a bulbous nose, and a giant hat that obscured his eyes. Mr. Wimpy had his own video game and had multiple adventures across his advertising heyday. While Mr. Wimpy almost died in a hit-and-bun accident, he still stands today. Brothers-in-law Burt Baskin and Irv Robbins merged their individual ice cream shops in the late 1940s and chose a hyphenated name order based on a coin flip. Their 31 flavors concept launched in 1953, and to aid their indecisive customers, they introduced a mini pink spoon to encourage sampling. In 1998, the pink spoon was elevated to mascot status. Account executive Michael Sheldon told the Los Angeles Times that Pinky the Spoon was the ambassador of happiness.
When was the last time you had an irresistible hot fudge sundae?
While the mascot has mostly been put back in the drawer in America, he's recently been employed in Russia. Picking up the slack these days is Coney, with his waffled body, gumball nose, chocolate hair with sprinkles, and pink and blue body parts. He was front and center at the 70th anniversary in 2015, and is BFFs with Dunkin's Cuppy. In 1958, brothers Frank and Dan Carney launched Pizza Hut, and Dan's fraternity brother Ed Pointer created a mascot for them as a favor, Pizza Pete. Pete served the burgeoning chain well. His image adorned the sides of its famed red roof buildings, Hut Bucks, Pizza Hut toys, and its logo, until a rebrand by Sam Moyers came about in 1974. While Pete hasn't made many repeat appearances in the last 5 decades, you can still find him smiling at some retro locations. To raise money to open a chicken finger restaurant, Todd Graves fished for salmon in Alaska, and when he returned home, he almost named his venture Sockeyes because of it. Luckily, his friends convinced him to name it after his Labrador retriever, Raising Cane, who was a constant presence at the first location's construction site. Cane died in 1998, but every customer who enters Raising Cane's today is welcomed by a photo of him wearing sunglasses. Cane 1 was succeeded by Cane 2, a therapy dog who visited hospitals and lived from 1999 to 2016. Cane 3 was introduced to the world at a 2018 Mardi Gras event, where Graves was the ceremonial king.
So, Cane, what is actually in the cane sauce?
Cane is not only a living, breathing dog, but can be seen in an inflatable form, as a seasonal plush puppy, and even a pillow. Believe it or not, Popeyes the restaurant wasn't named after the cartoon sailor. Founder Al Copeland launched the fast food joint in 1972 and came up with the name on the eve of opening after watching the late, great Gene Hackman as Detective Popeye Doyle in the movie The French Connection. Copeland recalled to the Democrat and Chronicle that his friends thought he was crazy, but on that initial flash of inspiration, he immediately called a painter and had him plaster the name over the door. Of course, with a name like that, it was all but inevitable that Popeye the Sailor Man would eventually figure in. And just a few years later, the New Orleans chicken joint entered into a licensing agreement with the Hearst Corporation, and soon Popeye and his gang decorated boxes, drinking glasses, and even lampshades. The comic character and fried chicken franchise ended their mutually beneficial licensing agreement in 2012. Burger Queen, no relation to Burger King, was a Kentucky-based chain that got buzzing in 1971 with their Queenie Bee mascot. Queenie was kept busy with in-store appearances, brought to life first by Joyce Murphy, then Susan Bandy. In 1981, Burger Queen was rebranded as Druthers and went in a new direction with a Johnny Appleseed-like troubadour mascot, Andy Dandytail. In 1990, a majority of Druthers restaurants were converted to Dairy Queens, and today only one location remains. The Druthers in Campbellsville, Kentucky displays Queenie Bee on its exterior sign, and still offers the Andy Dandytail Dandy Dinner. Inspired by Chuck E. Cheese predecessor Pizza Time Theaters, Robert L. Brock struck out on his own to form rival Showbiz Pizza Place. The creative engineering maestro Aaron Fletcher quickly conjured up an electro-animated show like no other. The restaurant showcased the sounds of the Rock-afire Explosion Band, featuring lead bear Billy Bob Broccoli, who was backed up by a menagerie of animatronic instrumentalists. After Showbiz acquired Pizza Time Theater in the mid-'80s, the Rock-afire Explosion was converted to a band to support their better-known new asset, Chuck E. Cheese and Munch's Make-Believe. While the Rock-afire Explosion show came to an end, there's still one last holdout playing at Billy Bob's Wonderland in Barbersville, West Virginia.
There will be a day when I will be president of the world. And there will be a day when there'll be a banana in every pot.
Started in 1919, A&W was one of America's first fast food franchises. It took until the 1960s for the company to lean on mascots, starting with a family of statues that stood tall outside some locations. Wanting to stay relevant in the 70s, as McDonald's was taking over the industry, A&W hired a Toronto ad agency that came up with a mascot that tested poorly with focus groups. Despite reservations, they moved forward anyway. Rudy, the Great Root Bear, was introduced in 1974, wearing an orange sweater and a cap. Rudy hibernated for some time at the turn of the century, but returned in 2012 to light up social media, becoming the first mascot with a LinkedIn page. Culver's custard mascot Scoopy is a happy-go-lucky cone who has gone through a lot of transformations over the years. He was recently updated to be a little more modern, but he's still a beloved icon, especially around his hometown of Sauk City, Wisconsin. Curds are also the word at Culver's, and the signature side has a worthy mascot to match, Curtis the Curd Nerd. Curtis is a rather chatty chap, and the company utilizes its cheesy ambassador with a strong online presence. Looking to combat allergies and stay healthy, Steve Kuno started making smoothies for himself, then others, when he opened the original smoothie bar in 1973. It reigned so supreme that it was renamed Smoothie King. Given that the store basically sold a single product, delivered in a cup, a mascot reflecting that was a smooth choice for the company. The Smoothie King mascot started more like a princess than a king, feminine in appearance, before basically becoming what amounts to a cup with the Smoothie King logo on it. And despite his name, the Smoothie King has never worn a crown, unless you count a lid with a straw. While Firehouse Subs does not officially have a mascot, the sandwich chain founded by brothers Chris and Robin Sorensen in 1994 has had no problem using a Dalmatian dog as a volunteer mascot. The National Fire Protection Agency created Sparky the Fire Dog in 1951, and since Firehouse Subs does a lot of crossover events with the agency, the real Sparky, or at least a costumed Dalmatian that looks like him and is casually nicknamed Sparky, is often seen in and around the stores. Most importantly, Sparky is regularly involved with the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation, organization and its public events, which has awarded more than $73 million to public safety organizations to provide equipment, training, education, and support to hometown heroes.
Look at that. They're tormenting us, Tom-Tom.
It's always been about the panda for Panda Express, but a lot of people don't know that the black and white cuddly panda that lives in the brand's logo and in the minds of those who love their orange chicken has a name, Tom-Tom. Tom-Tom once starred in a string of ads with his chatty panda buddy, Eddie, and he's also been put to good use by Panda Cares, the philanthropic arm of Panda Restaurant Group. He even made a cameo appearance in Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights. Auntie Ann Byler may have lent her name to her franchise, but when it comes to representing the brand, a hat-wearing, salted blue pretzel named Twisty has been doing all the promotional work since 2000. Twisty has traveled far and wide on behalf of Auntie Anne's, handing out pretzel dogs, ringing the closing bell at NASDAQ, and attending pretzel rolling competitions. Schlotzsky's wasn't named after their founders, or anyone for that matter. As the story goes, the name was likely made up while one of the founders played with his children, rearranging alphabet blocks until he found a name that he liked. No known backstory exists on where their mascot got his name, but Bobby the Bun Kid started making appearances at the deli in the mid-90s. The brand eventually ditched the and kid in the mascot's name to take on the more streamlined name Bobby Bun. To set a good example for others, Bobby Bun is a big fan of fitness. He's worked as the face of a bun run, sponsored putting contests, and has led others in warm-up exercises.